Let us pray. We thank you, Lord, for today. Thanking you so much that you brought us here to this gathering. And would like to thank you so much, Lord, for the first ESS of this year. Lord, would like to pray that you give us the energy to keep the momentum for these meetings throughout the year. Lord, as we start, we'd like to pray that you be with us, guide us in these discussions, that whatever we discuss should not just go in vain, though, Lord, but that it should improve the lives of many Malawians out there. We pray all this.
Thank you very much. Once again, good afternoon and welcome to the Bingu International Convention Center this afternoon, where we are having the 10th Eminent Speaker Series. This is a series in a series of speakers that the MwAPATA Institute, alongside its partners, the National Planning Commission and the Lilongwe University on Science and the University of Agriculture and Natural Resources host periodically to give a chance to Malawians, experts and the likes officials and members of the public to debate on topical issues largely to do with agriculture and the economy. So this afternoon, let me start by recognizing our eminent speaker, Professor Sostin Chiota. Professor, welcome and good afternoon. Let me also recognize Mr. William Jadza, the Executive Director of MwAPATA Institute, Dr. Thomas Muntali, the Director General of the National Planning Commission, Dr. Agnes Mangwela, the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. I've also seen various senior officials. I've noticed the presence of Dr. Jessica Bwila from the Malawi School of Government, Mr. Philip Madinga, the CEO of Standard Bank Malawi, and other senior officials. Please feel recognized. Our panelists, Mrs. Gunda, who is a farmer, Mr. Pearson Soko, Dr. Tabi Chilongo, Jeremy Vanabo, and Dr. Geoffrey Kananji. Senior officials from the government, NGOs, the private sector, and international organizations. Our audience, both physically here and also online, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, good afternoon and welcome to the 10th Eminent Speaker Series today, the 25th of January 2024, where this afternoon we have our eminent speaker, Professor Sostin Chiota, to lead us in the discussion under the topic, Enhancing Agricultural Growth and Diversification. I do not have to overemphasize the importance of agriculture diversification and growth to the country. As we all know by now that most of the economic challenges the Malawi is facing currently are to do with the as a result of our inability to diversify our agriculture in terms of production beyond tobacco and other few crops, as well as inability to improve agriculture and achieve high growth in an economy that is reliant on farming. The Eminent Speaker Series event aims to explore and generate practical interventions to enhance agricultural productivity and diversification. And it is against this background that a collaboration between MwAPATA Institute, the National Planning Commission, the Lilongwe and the Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources are organizing this 10th Eminent Speaker Series event. Our eminent speaker, Professor Chiota, who is Regional Director for Leadership for Environment and Development Lead in Southern Africa, will make a keynote presentation on the theme, followed by a panel discussion on the same. So before I introduce the eminent speaker to the podium, let me invite the Executive Director of MwAPATA Institute, Mr. William Jadza, to come in front and officially welcome all of us to the event. Mr. Jadza.
Thank you so much, our moderator, our eminent speaker, Professor Sostin Chiota, Dr. Thomas Muntali, Director General of the National Planning Commission, and your staff, Dr. Agnes Manguera, the Deputy Vice Chancellor for LUANAR. I'm not sure if she's already here, but I do see representation from LUANAR via the Director of Research. Feel welcome. I also like to recognize Dr. Candida Nankuma, the Country Director for the Agricultural Transformation Initiative and also Vice President for the Foundation for Smoke-Free World. Mr. Jacob Nyirongo, the Chief Executive Officer, Farmers Union of Malawi. He is also Chair for the MwAPATA Institute Advisory Board. Mr. Eric Chizungu, the Chief Executive Officer for the Green Belt Authority. Mr. Philip Madinga, the Chief Executive Officer for Standard Bank, and also Commissioner for National Planning Commission. I also like to recognize Dr. Jessica Bwira, who is the head of the Malawi School of Government, the Kanengo campus, and also Mrs. Adriana Luanda, who is the Chief Executive Officer for AICC, all protocols observed. First of all, just to indicate that we are very delighted that you responded very positively to our invitation to this event this afternoon. As you heard earlier on, this is a collaborative event, MwAPATA Institute, National Planning Commission, and also Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. As an institute, we believe that it's very important for us to work together and collaborate because that's the only way in which we can make a much more meaningful impact as we contribute towards the aspirations of Malawi 2063, particularly Pillar 1 of that. This eminent speaker series event is going to specifically focus on this important topic of enhancing agricultural growth and diversification. We are aiming to accomplish a number of milestones this afternoon. First of all, we look forward to increasing awareness and understanding of some of the challenges, but not only challenges, but also look at some of the opportunities for enhancing productivity and also diversification. Second, we also look forward to coming up with a number of policy options and also practical recommendations for us to build a sustainable, productive, and resilient agricultural system. And again, as you note in the room, there's quite a diversity in terms of stakeholders. So we hope this gives us an opportunity to build new networks and also explore different ways in which we can collaborate so that we can move towards implementation of the different interventions which will come out of the conversation this afternoon. At this point, I would like to specially welcome our eminent speaker, Professor Sosten Chiota, who, as you all know, is the Regional Director for Leadership in Environment and Development for Southern and Eastern Africa. Feel welcome. Thank you so much, Prof. Chiota, for agreeing to make the keynote address this afternoon. I also would like to welcome our distinguished panelists for agreeing to share their experiences this afternoon. As we heard, we have Mrs. Konda, who is a farmer, and I think it's important because we have the opportunity to hear some of the practical aspects with regards to us towards moving towards enhancing agricultural growth and diversification. Also, thank you so much, the Director of Agricultural Extension, Mr. Pearson Soko, also for agreeing to be with us this afternoon. Also extending my thanks to Dr. Tabi Chirongo from CAD, also for agreeing to be with us this afternoon. And also Mr. Jeremy Venable from Pixels Agriculture, also for agreeing to be with us this afternoon. Also would like to thank Dr. Kananji from the Center for Agricultural Transformation for also agreeing to be with us this afternoon. So as you note, there's quite a diversity in terms of our panelists, and we look forward to rich discussions. Finally, I would like to thank you all for being here, and we look forward to your usual active participation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Jaza. Let's give another round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to introduce our eminent speaker this afternoon. He is a man who doesn't need much introduction because all of us have heard about him, at least in Malawi, but I will introduce him just to make sure that I do confirm his profile. So Professor Sosten Chiota currently holds the position of Before this, he was the first board chair of the Malawi National Commission of Science and Technology. He also worked as a research coordinator at the University of Malawi and is currently serving as an advisory board member of the Southern Voices on Climate Change, STV. He holds a Bachelor of Education degree from the University of Malawi, a Master of Science in Medical Parasitology from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and a PhD in Marine Science from the University of Maryland in the United States of America. In recognition of his contributions, Professor Chiota was awarded an honorary Doctor of Laws by the University of Dundee in the UK in 2022. And let me also mention that Professor Chiota is a champion of the Malawi 2063 on environment. So join me in welcoming Professor Chiota to the podium, and let's give him a big round of applause. Professor Chiota, welcome.
Where's Maggie? This is not my laptop. Oh, okay. So it's there. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, colleagues, and thanks to the three partners for inviting me to come and share my thoughts this afternoon on this important topic. So my presentation outline of course, covers the importance about the sector that we are talking about this afternoon, understanding productivity, diversity, a lot of challenges in the sector, the benefits of diversification, practical strategies, including policy, then conclusion. So just remind ourselves that this sector is very important in its contribution to GDP, supplying materials for the private sector, job creation, food security, and all of those. I think if we are talking about the growth of the sector, it means that some of these, such as contribution to GDP, must improve. However, I think it is overburdened with, for example, the last point, main livelihood option of the rural people, 93%. I think it has reached its limit as far as that responsibility is concerned. So we need to diversify our economy so that the pressure on agriculture gets reduced. So diversification is a holistic integration, the sectors, crop, livestock, and fish to enhance productivity, leveraging on the diverse nature from the genetic opportunities to all the way to diverse ecosystems and along the landscape stage. And this must be aligned to the markets, and there has to be enabling policy for that to happen. But more importantly, integrate traditional practices. And I'm happy that there's a farmer who's going to be around with us. In terms of growth, we have celebrated the small steps, and that's why we are in trouble now. Our population is growing exponentially. So production must also follow that pattern. So we need to move away from incremental, being satisfied with incremental changes, but we want radical and transformative changes in terms of productivity, in terms of improving livelihoods. Yield gap is still there between what is possible at the research station and what happens on the farm. We need to address that. Area under irrigation, yes, we've had irrigation growing, but the area is still small. And of course, sustainability, everything that we do, we should have a sustainability lens. And that's what is shown there, that when you have growth, make sure that when we meet our needs, we must also ensure that the needs of the future generations are met. I thought growth and diversification, what word concept in our local systems best describes that? And I thought it is the MwAPATA. And the MwAPATA concept is that kids are fussy eaters, and you need to have diversity of food in your home, otherwise they will be crying. Kids eat frequently. You need to have adequate food so that they eat, otherwise they'll be crying. But on the scientific side, children need good food so that they're able to grow their potential. We've talked about stunting, but also even our cognitive development requires that you have balanced diet. So I thought MwAPATA is the concept that we can use. And we had the grain store for the maize. You had one for legumes, but you also had a pit where you kept potatoes mixed with ash so that the ants don't destroy your food. That's the concept of diversification, the concept of agricultural growth. These days we talk about the lean season. I think December, January, February, when there's no food. But if you look at the Chichewa term of Sunjwe, it means that you were planning to grow food so that you should have surplus for year 1, year 2, and others even year 3, which they call the Sunjwe. So they knew that at one point in time there's going to be a lean year, not a lean season, but a lean year. You need to have food to cover that period. And that's where the term Sunjwe comes from. So these concepts are rooted in our culture. We need to integrate them when we are communicating these concepts. I thought I should give an example. That's Chakunda village in Mitundu, July 2019. You can actually see they are irrigating maize, vegetables. They have fish farming there. So you get diversification. When we went there later, we found that they had expanded the number of ponds. They had increased the number of horticultural crops, but they were also into beekeeping. So using that case study, we noticed that they had moved away from tobacco because they said tobacco is a lot of work. But if you're in beekeeping, so long as you have the intact environment, the bees do the work. And they preferred to do it this way. They grow maize irrigated, but also during the rainy season, and increase the area under irrigation, orchard. They harvest honey twice, they harvest fish twice, and they have employed youth. What I call youth empowerment is the fact that this farmer has partnered with the graduates from LUANAR. And so they're doing a lot of work. And innovative local PES, payment for ecosystem services. Why we are having environmental degradation is because people don't attach value to the natural resources. But when these people had reached 500 beehives and they needed more, they had run out of trees. And so they went to the community. Is anybody who has trees on farm, can we hire those trees? And people agreed. And so they started hiring the trees out. So the tree is in your farm. It's simply sitting there. It's earning you money. That's what we call payment for ecosystem services. The nature-based solutions, there is Pilanjus, where people were stealing trees. And these people said, we can give you a nature-based solution. So they put the beehives there. And if you follow documentaries on nature, the African bee works hard, but it is also very aggressive. And so that has helped to protect the forests. Challenges. We worked with ladies in Mitundu. They had fish ponds. They were harvesting fish twice a year. But from 2015, they harvest only once. And we wanted them to express what they were experiencing in a diagram. So if you look at the red, it is the period when their wetland has no water. And you will see that that period has actually been increasing. Because of mismanaging our natural resources, we are affecting the availability of water. And it means the opportunities for growth in agriculture, opportunities for diversification are also being limited. So that shows on the right, the dams using a drone, no water, they had abandoned the work. And then the inset is in January when they had the water. I got this graph online. Area under irrigation is increasing, but slowly. We need to ensure that we have protected our natural resources, forests, so that we have enough water, so that we can actually increase area under irrigation. And last year, we were doing a project where we wanted to see, can you validate adaptation using remote sensing? And we chose irrigation as one of such activities. Those who know, they can tell vegetation that is green and from different vegetations. So they did that analysis and they found that during the dry season, there are very few places where it is green because of crops. And it means we can do better. But for that to happen, we need water. The challenge is our population is quite high. And Malawi, compared to the others, tells the story there. And what we need is a land use plan. With a population like this, you can't have haphazard land use, but that's what is happening here. Some of the fertile arable land is being put to houses. If you see what is happening around Lilongwe and other areas. When I made a presentation at the launch of the parliamentary caucus on population in 2017, I was assured that Malawi is a planning area, and that strategies had already been done. That's what I was told in Parliament in 2017. I haven't seen that happening. What I've seen is this haphazard growth. So that needs to be addressed. So that's the population, which is exponential. And when I was saying about employment and agriculture, 93% in agriculture with this kind of growth, you need to come up with agriculture that is transformative, but at the same time, you need to find ways of taking pressure away from the natural resources and agriculture for employment and livelihoods. This was done by Population Action International, and Malawi is among 15 population and climate hotspots in Africa, where population growth is high, declining agricultural productivity, and low resiliency to climate change. When they looked at water stress, Malawi is one of 4 countries that are experiencing water stress. We might have Lake Malawi, Lake Malombe, and Lake Shira, but that water is not easily accessible. And we have to rely mostly on wetlands and rivers, which are actually drying. Deforestation is a serious issue, and you can actually see the rate at which it has changed, mostly human settlement, energy. And when we did the State of Environment and Outlook report in 2010, one of the recommendations was that we should have a human settlement policy. I'm not sure if that has been done, but there's also the reduction in biodiversity resulting from the deforestation. We lose ecosystem services, we lose opportunities now. There are carbon markets and carbon credits. You can earn carbon credits and earn money, but if you have very few trees and there's a threat that you are actually losing the trees, then you are also losing the opportunities. That's how the trend has been. And this one, I was telling the DG that one of the things I don't like doing a presentation here is the quality of projection, because I use a lot of pictures. But I hope you'll be able to see. The above picture, you had excellent forest cover in Zomba, and the bottom picture is all gone. This is actually a crisis. Some of the floods that we're experiencing is not necessarily because of high rainfall, but it's actually because of the loss of vegetation cover. This is a crisis. Very soon we'll be importing wood, when in fact we were self-sustaining. So we can't be importing food, we can't be importing wood, we can't be importing fish. Actually, I was told that we are also now importing fish. There's also threats to biodiversity because of fragmentation, unsustainable land use, continuous cultivation. If you remember the way farming was being done in the past, there was a period of fallow, and what it meant, that was also a management. If you just leave trees, you get climax vegetation, so you have very few species. But if you cut, grow crops, then leave, allow it to recover, then you create habitat diversity. That's why there is that phrase, meaning that after you have left your land for fallow, you've allowed other organisms to actually thrive there. There are invasive species which were introduced. Opinions are divided. There is eucalyptus, blue gum, which grows very fast. People say it is going to consume water. But if you want to get wood faster, what do you do? But that might interfere with the irrigation. Tobacco, one of the issues that tobacco did to us is to exterminate this tree, which is MwAPATA. In the days when they were doing fire cured tobacco, they preferred this tree MwAPATA because it produces a lot of smoke. Now, people were keeping this tree not because it is good for firewood, because of the smoke, you can't use it for cooking, but they kept these trees because of the fruits, and so that supplements the production from agriculture, but also very nice caterpillars called MwAPATA, named after the tree. This is one tree that is almost under extinction because of tobacco. Communities know the changes that are happening on the ground. If you ask them to do a trend analysis, they will tell you land holding is changing, diversity is changing, and so they know. And it's up to us, the technical people, working with them and with policies to improve the situation. Similar thing, we did this in Chukwawa. You'll actually see that as you move from 1997, you're actually seeing the number of houses increasing, the land for agriculture is increasing, but then it starts shrinking. The forests also start shrinking. I was fascinated to look at the report, the Malawi government report on genetic resources, that actually some of the land races, we've lost them. There was Chalimbana, which was an important confectionery groundnut, no longer available in Dowa. There's the kind of maize, Bantam, no longer available. They're talking about the Kanchiputu. I remember Kanchiputu was a very nice nice potato. It's no longer there. So there's a whole list there, which the researchers, the experts have actually found out that they're no longer there. So it's possible to actually lose. The other challenge we have is low cereal production. And I got this online that actually 4.4 million people are at risk of acute food insecurity. We need to validate the figure, but at least it's a challenge. I know from the Lake Shiller Plain that because of Cyclone Freddy, the rice was flooded, and it's still flooded. So they lost the crop of last year. They're not able to use the same land for a crop this year. The little rain that came this year, when they had gone upland to plant more rice, has also been flooded. So these are challenges that we're experiencing. I was looking for a graph on productivity for maize, and thanks to MwAPATA, they were able to get me one. This is where I was talking about our population is growing exponentially, but our production for maize is not growing exponentially. And so that mismatch is what is causing the hunger. But it's also interesting if you look at the line below, which is the land under cultivation to maize, is actually more or less is becoming flat because there's nowhere else to grow maize. So you can't increase production by increasing land under maize. You've got to transform the system so that you are able to increase production of maize in other ways. We're talking of hunger. That's what communities do. They know the causes of hunger. So let's not waste our time going and try to do capacity building. They know causes of hunger. They know what happens when you're hungry. And we did actually take theirs and put it in a format. So they know. What we need is to provide solutions. We did the food diaries in the several places in Zomba. And what we noticed that indeed maize is the thing, and not just maize, but a lot of it. And you'll actually see, so we're actually weighing, and it's amazing how much SEMA people take. But the one on the left, at least it was a reasonably balanced diet. It had fish with tomato and vegetables. The one on the left had the SEMA with Simbewa and grasshoppers. But both of them show the dependency on the forests, the rivers, to supplement our food. What that food diaries study showed is that the fruits were absent from the diaries. And so this, if there's one thing that we need to do as part of diversification, is to ensure that fruit production other than tomato is actually increased. Climate change, we know, challenges, onset of rainfall. So the one on the left, 17 December, same place, that's the crop that was there, 2017, but 17 December 2022, you can see nothing. And this creates confusion. Some of you may have seen the documentary that we did on NBC, where people were actually uprooting maize. There's one farmer who actually uprooted a whole 20 hectare that he had planted to maize, because we can validate that. We have 5 automated weather stations, and you can actually see why WMO says that you should have weather stations within a space of 15 kilometers. So we have 7 in the Lake Shore Basin. And you will see the one that we have at Malosa. There was some rainfall on 18th October. It wasn't enough, and people didn't plant. They considered that as it is Malusa. On 31st October, that's where if you add the 2 days rainfall, it covers what people are advised, at least 25 millimeters of rainfall. So others planted that day, but some were still waiting and thinking it's reaches Malusa. But 10th November, 11th November, undoubtedly you had 40 millimeters. People planted. The ones that were uprooting maize in December are all those categories who planted according to this. So the rainfall has become elusive. Forecasts have improved, but the packaging of information, weather forecast, and what farmers should do, there is still a gap. We had a panel discussion in 2011, because we've been following every year, people are planting and uprooting. And the MED said they can provide the forecast. The agriculture experts said all they can do is take that information to the farmers to say if you have something like 25 and above, you can plant. But whether they can tell them that this is the time to plant, they said they couldn't. They leave that decision to the farmer. So the farmer is the one who should have correct information to make the decision. And that correct information means the rainfall has come. Is there going to be a delay or a dry spell? And that's what has happened. Those who planted in November, even though there was enough rain, but there was a 14-day dry spell. And then also, if you remember this season, we had extreme heat. There was a heat wave. It was actually announced. We noticed from our station that we had 25 days that were above 30 degrees. In Zomba, it should be 20 to 30, and we had 25 days above 30 degrees. So this kind of information is complex. It needs to be packaged by a group that should provide farmers with the right information. Now, even if you're provided with the information, should they have not planted in November? Maybe they should plant in December. You don't know how long the season is going to go, is going to be held. This is where our mindset change from irrigation for dry season only should be irrigation even to bridge the dry spells. And actually it would be cheaper that way, that you actually irrigate even during the rainy season. So the tobacco producers are doing that, but those that are producing crops are not doing that. Salima Alifu is an example where when there's a dry spell, they irrigate their rice, but there is that infrastructure. So what I'm saying is, let's transpose that into the production of maize. So that's another weather station. Even tea can get scorched. Tobacco, we know, has suffered from Matalala. Then, of course, emerging pests. And the one on the right is actually maize, which had very good fertilizer. It was a good crop. Then the rain disappeared. And when the rain disappeared, the fall armyworm came in. So it's like these things are cascading. You know, one challenge creates problems for another challenge. That's what I was talking about in Lake Shira. So if you see all that green is rice under a good year. But all of that was destroyed by Cyclone Freddy, and the water is still there, so they haven't planted this year. Policy frameworks, so maize, focus on maize. If you take a systems approach, you are supposed to look at the whole system, but we seem to be fixating on certain things, tobacco as the main cash crop, maize as the food crop, and then even our habits also tend to align. We've talked diversify your food, but even the ones that are giving the messages have not diversified. So it is a challenge. Marketing, it was interesting. I'm not an economist, but looking through the literature, they're saying markets are volatile. When you produce more, you have problems. The prices go down. When you produce less, then you can't sell outside because they say we have less. So there are all those challenges, and I think the experts in economics can actually help us out. Now, conflicting knowledge systems. We are talking about diversification. It means that some of the diversified crops are kept by farmers. And I remember the debates we had during the formulation of the seed policy, that should ordinary farmers be allowed to also share their seeds, but it's not certified. So only those that can certify. So it was quite an interesting debate. This person, for 3 years, has been planting maize and harvesting nothing. You know, and there's something wrong. But it's not only him. You know, even our thinking that we've put all our eggs in a few crops, even though they are failing, we need to have a mindset change. Then we have a dual agriculture system, the state sector and the smallholder farmer. You look at the percentages. One is more on cash crop. The other one has been burdened with food production. Somewhere we need a balance and transform the system so that there's transition from the smallholder farmers to the cash crop. And then at the same time, the estate sectors be pushed into the food production. Those are what we should be doing. I put that one as lack of seriousness. And anyone who's gone to Salima, take time and stop at Mvela. This was a project for value addition through processing. equipment from somewhere, it was bought. It's still in plastics. That was 2008. It's still in plastics. The building is substandard, it's almost collapsing. And it wasn't seen through to the end. That's what I'm calling lack of seriousness. 2008, that's how many years? Almost, 16? Yeah. So it's not very far from the road. I would encourage the NBC director one of these days just to stop there and validate this. These are the things that we should be addressing, unnecessary bottlenecks that are affecting our growth. Agricultural subsidy is a very contested issue. It has contributed to increased maize production. Others are saying because of that, it is affecting production of the others, the legumes. Others are saying it should be abandoned. I'm saying it should not be abandoned, but it should be transformed and better managed to unlock potential of the whole sector. Why I'm saying it should not be abandoned is because of the work that we have done. There are people that, given support, they have become independent. They have produced enough food. So if we're talking about the agricultural growth, there are people that, given some push, they can do better. But I think it's the management and other challenges. What are the benefits of diversification? So there's maize which have different colors. Those different colors are traits that have value for nutrition, but also it could be a resistance to pests, drought resistance. So all those qualities of different plants, different animals, they have value, but also diverse marketing opportunities. But also, we don't understand everything. So let's keep them, because some of those genes will be useful for the next generations. And I was doing, as a hobby, I used to collect different colored maize and plant, and but it's very tough. I keep on losing after a year or two. Then I start again. But the flavors are nice. And the one on the right, there's a drink that they give you when you go to Peru. It's a very nice drink. And our sister organization in Mexico, where maize came from, actually said, you can diversify through different crops, but you guys are eating sima only. You can also diversify on the recipes that you get from maize. And so they are willing to come to Malawi, spend time with us, and give us a range of recipes that you can have from maize. I think in Malawi it's only sima and is it mkate, the one you do with the maize and bananas. Then you have chokazinga, popcorn, and so we've got about 5, but there's a whole range. So part of diversification should be recipes and learning from where maize came from. If you go and see where maize came from, it's actually just like ordinary grass. They don't allow you to take pictures or take any samples, but I thought I had wasted my time because I thought I was going to see something fascinating, but it's just grass, So quite a lot of breeding has happened to reach this stage. So let's protect. The women are very critical in terms of preserving our biodiversity and even our recipes, so Mfutso and the others, you actually see them. So if we're losing the diversity, we are also losing opportunities because they have actually had the skills. I was looking at the number of varieties that have been officially released, again, from that government document. So there's a whole list. So opportunities are quite great. But I'm asking MH18 received the Master Award. I think Master is Malawi Scientific Award for Technical Advancement, something like that. The first time that I went to Ntama House was as University Research Coordinator. We had to go and witness Dr. Banda giving the award to these scientists because they had solved the headache that the president had. These women always telling him, these hybrids that you've given us, we can't pound them, we don't want them. So this was a major breakthrough. And I think each of the three scientists got 50,000 kwacha each. Then it was a lot of money. But what has happened to Master? So DG, these are some of the incentives that we needed to create to get people working hard. On-farm and landscape diversity. So the example I gave for Bunda is because they have water aquaculture, they have orchards, they have the bush, then they are able to do even beekeeping, but also agroforestry opportunity. If you take the Lakeshore Road, there is all the Msangu that is doing well. We researchers made mistakes. After seeing Msangu doing well in the Lakeshore, we thought we could take Msangu everywhere. And then you found that after 10 years, it was barely a food pie because you had taken it to the wrong place. So practical strategies. I got that graph online. Actually, you've seen that tobacco is going down because of external forces, and so let's not be procrastinating. It's time to make sure that we find a substitute soon and fast. I think the cannabis is one of them, but let's diversify. But I found that graph interesting because it shows that there is an increase in legumes and pulses. But again, it's incremental, so we need to grow much faster than that to meet the demand. That's Lifu. Again, it is a very good example. Lifu has, in Salima, has a lot of land that you can scale up rice production. You can also involve a lot of people. What was the bottleneck was and there's plenty of water from Lake Malawi. What the bottleneck was, it was the pump. The pump capacity was weak. So with funding from EU, they got new pumps, high capacity. But then when I went there, I was told that still not much was happening. The reason being that policy issue, I think at a certain level, ESCOM charges you like you are a factory. And so within few months, the farmers realized that they had a bill of something like 20-something million kwacha, because as I was saying, it is a good model. They irrigate when there's a dry spell, and when it's raining, they don't irrigate. Then they irrigate continuously during the dry season. So that's a very good model. But they were still being charged when they were not irrigating. When there was plenty of rain, they stopped irrigating. Then they got charged. I did present this to the Minister of Agriculture. I hope it has now been resolved, but that's an issue. It's a policy issue. We need to address it. One area can help another area to unlock the potential in terms of rice production, in terms of employing people. I was told it could employ up to 500 people. So that's something that we should do. But also I said our scientists, let's challenge our technologists. Why don't we pump the water at night when the tariff is low? Create a tank, there are quite a number of hills, put a tank on the hill, and then irrigate during the day. And when you are irrigating during the day, let the water go through a mean grid. So you'll be generating electricity. So this is transformation, growth, diversification is going to happen when we start thinking that way and collaborating with different sectors. This is another case that I found interesting. This is Peskin. We've seen that the farmers, the smallholder farmers, many of them are underperforming. And now what Peskin did was to work with several smallholder farmers. They have the land. And then Peskin has the technology. And so they went into a shareholding arrangement. So several farmers will release their land, and then they are growing the maize, sugarcane under irrigation. We need to do that for other areas. I went to Mangochi last week. I think it is feasible in the Mangochi area. If you drive past Lake Malombe, the settlement pattern in Mangochi is that they cluster and then they leave land for farming. So it would be easier to transform. In other places, you have one house here, you have a farm, another house there. So it becomes difficult to actually integrate that into this kind of arrangement. The issue that they had, which I think we need to know, is that the shareholding arrangements for the investment, it's got to be not less than 10 years. And the same, if you go into carbon markets, you're talking of 30 years, sometimes 50 years. And so our thinking is short-term, year by year. And there were those who felt that if you enter into an arrangement for 10 years, you lose your land. So there has to be a way in which you can assure the farmers that this is a win-win situation. Unless we transform that way, we will continue every year, 5 years, we don't have enough food. I put that one, that's Napoleon Zombe. So sometimes this is an area where they were not growing bananas, they were not growing rice. So diversification and growth means that we test the limits, leveraging carbon markets, and this is the Cocoa Network. They have a stove that uses ethanol, and in Kenya they have seen that it costs 60% less than charcoal, and so they have 1 million customers plus. They are looking into Malawi, and I think this is something that we should embrace and help them to solve the problem on our afforestation. The problem is that we don't have enough ethanol in the country. But I'm saying that's an opportunity. Mega farms can, go into sugarcane production, produce the ethanol. There's that car. When I was board chair for National Commission for Science and Technology in 2012, we had a minister drive that ethanol-driven car in 2012. It hasn't been rolled out, So these are opportunities that when we are talking about growth and diversification, you can tap on the carbon markets so long as you structure your system in a way that it takes advantage of the way the markets for carbon are structured. I was happy to visit the Greenbelt Salima, and I was impressed that they use drip irrigation, and it was with the high tech. Some farmers in Zomba wanted us to buy them an extra pump because they wanted more people to actually go into irrigation. And I said, you don't need an extra pump. All you need is to use your water efficiently. And so drip irrigation is something that has been around since the 1990s, but it's slowly it's struggling to take off. People don't think that a plant will survive with those drops. So this is an area where there's going to be mindset change because we don't have enough water. Landscape, this is in Doha. You can actually see the houses are below. And I thought that that is a flood risk, but it is not because they have kept good grass cover and bushes up here. So when it rains, they don't get flooding. But they've kept that for livestock grazing. But also, that's where they get kalabungu, those caterpillars. So if there's a place every year in Doha where they get caterpillars every year, it is that place. And it's integrating the habitat with the farming, livestock production, and then getting the benefits from the environment. This is Mvera, and that's where they grow a lot of tobacco. They grow a lot of tomato and other vegetables. They eventually realized that they were running out of water, similar to what was happening in Mitundu. Then the private sector responded because it was affected, and this was tobacco company, because tobacco you have to raise the nurseries during the dry season. And because there was no water in the stream, people prioritized irrigating vegetables rather than raising tobacco seedlings. And so the private sector came, created a dam, which they wanted people to be using directly from the dam. But what it did, the dam upstream, the communities noticed that now the river flows throughout the year because it's like kind of water harvesting, and it's recharging the rivers. So what I'm saying is we had a flood last year. Our station in Zomba reached the maximum of 2,000 millimeters. It's never happened before. And this year we are uprooting maize because there's not enough water. So let's have dams, water harvesting and reserve, and then we'll be able to improve our growth and diversify. So in terms of recommendations, I've gone back to the land that we know. It is limited. We can't expand the land. And part of it is the surface water. So 20% is taken away. When you take those chunks, we are left with the very little. So we need to be very organized to actually grow our agriculture, and diversification is one of them. And then there are the zones that we should take advantage of. So like this is CMS, when they're giving the weather forecast, they will tell you Shire Valley, Lakeshore Road, high elevation areas. That's what they give. And I was asking Dr. Gamdonyo, how did you decide that this is how you should be reporting? And he told me that actually in the past they had to do a study and then zone these different climatic areas. So our agricultural growth and diversification should actually take advantage of these climatic zones that have already been done for us. There's also zonation based on physiography and the weather conditions. We had the ADDs. When I was doing research in the 90s, I worked with the program managers. But I think in the transition of decentralization, I'm not sure where we've left the ADDs, but that was specifically designed to take advantage and optimize agroecological potentials. So somehow we shouldn't lose that. Our weather stations, so you can see that this is just within the last 3 months. So the highest rainfall is in Kuchawe. The next rainfall is Port Lister, then Mulunguzi, Malosa come next. And you can actually see the red line that rainfall is also related to altitude. And we need to have this kind of understanding for our agricultural growth. Let's not do it haphazardly. You're finding people planting maize at Kushawe. You know, the temperature is low, you don't harvest anything. Why can't we find crops that can do better there? And I was talking to my colleague from South Africa, Catherine Vincent Foster. So we were talking about transformations. And so while I was talking about transforming the whole agricultural system, but she rightly said, but you also need the transformation of the food systems. And so transformation of the food systems can happen within and out of maize production, transformation of land and the water use, transformation from domestic to export markets, and then diet diversification and transformations, like what I was saying about our food diaries. Thank you very much. That's masuku. I've planted masuku at my house for almost 6 years. It's just this high. But when we allowed masuku under regeneration, within 3 years, it started fruiting. So if you lose the diversity, it's difficult to do it artificially. Thank you very much for your attention.
I think he deserves a much bigger round of applause. Thank you very much, Prof. Very practical with clear examples. And you could see that his presentation was full of images and pictures, not texts. And I think he has challenged us enough. I will not go much into his presentation because Dr. Thomas Muntali towards the end will come and indeed have a bigger take on his presentation, and also that will come from the panel discussion. Let me first of all recognize the presence of the PS for Irrigation Engineer Geoffrey Mamba. Welcome, PS. And also from LUANAR, I've seen Dr. Katengeza. Welcome. We'll proceed the program. PS will invite you towards the end. This is now time for the panel discussion, and I will be inviting the panelists to the front with small introductions in terms of biographies. First of all, I would like to invite the farmer. Her name is Temwani Gunda, and she's the co-founder of JAT Farms, which is at Chiseka along the Bunda Road. She is into mushroom production, and the farm has 18 employees and sells the mushrooms to hotels and supermarkets. But she has an interesting background because she studied agriculture economics at the Bunda and graduated in 2007 and worked in different ministries in fields such as M&E, policy formulation, budgeting, and all those things economists do in government. So she's now into mushroom production, and that's another clear example of what when you practice what you can achieve. So join me in welcoming Temwani to the front. Let's clap hands for Temwani. Also joining us on the panel is Dr. Kananji. Dr. Kananji, previously, Dr. Kananji is currently currently Director of Science, Technology and Innovation at Land O'Lakes of the Center for Agriculture Transformation. He previously worked as Country Manager for Agra and also as a legumes breeder in charge of the Seed Services Unit, and also National Coordinator of Legumes, Fiber and Oilseeds in the Department of Agriculture Research Services. He holds a PhD in plant breeding from the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, a Master of Science in Plant Conservation, Genetics from the University of Birmingham in the UK, and of course the BSc in Agriculture also from Bunda. Welcome, Dr. Kananji, to the front. Also joining us on the panel is Mr. Pearson Isaac Jasi Soko. Mr. Soko, Professor. Mr. Soko is an agribusiness extension expert working with the Ministry of Agriculture as Director of Agriculture Extension Services. He holds a Master of Science degree in Agriculture, Food and Resource Economics from University of Florida in the USA, and has a traceable 24 years vast experience in extension management, project development, management, agribusiness development, institutional development, etc., and so many areas. And but also more importantly, gender mainstreaming, including youth, women empowerment, and market linkages. He has a special passion working with farmers. Welcome, Mr. Pearson Isaac Jasisoko to the front. Also joining us on the panel is Jeremy Venable, who is the Chief of Party of the USAID Malawi Pixas Partnership, and he brings in 15 years of experience working with smallholder farmers, and this work has been focused on the intersection of smallholder farmers and linkages to international markets. Welcome, Jeremy. Last but not least, join me in welcoming Dr. Tabi Chilongo. Dr. Chilongo is a research fellow at the Center for Agricultural Research and Development, CARD, of the Lilongwe of LUANAR. He is the immediate past director of CARD and has over 20 years experience as a researcher academician. He was a PhD in economics, majoring in development and resource economics from the Norwegian University of Life Sciences, a BSc, and also an MSc in agriculture economics from the University of Malawi. I'm sure that should be Bunda. Welcome, Dr. Chilongo. Is she here? Is he here? Yeah, okay, he's here. Welcome, Doctor. So that's our panel, with which we'll be engaging in the next 30 minutes or so. So welcome, panelists. You have all heard the presentation by our eminent speaker, Professor Chiwota. So I'll start with the farmer. What farm level challenges associated with agricultural diversification among rural Malawian farmers? You are into mushroom production. What are the challenges that are you experiencing as a mushroom farmer, Temwani?
Thank you so much. Indeed, like as a mushroom farmer, like you said, there are so many challenges related to diversification. What I can say is I think the professor has said a lot of things, but just to say one or two things is that, for example, it's limited access to capital. This issue is normally, it's been talked here and there, every other meeting, people talk about it. There's limited access to finance. But talking as a farmer, it's indeed a true challenge, because I always say that if we are to go into diversification, we need to invest in, I call it SET. Why SET? It's investment in seed, equipment, and technology. You find that we are here talking here, but out there, the farmers are we're still practicing the old ways of farming. There's the technologies are there, but you find that the ones that are using, these are ordinary farmers that do not even understand what new technologies, how to apply. I'll give you an example of mushroom production. I do grow button mushroom, to be specific. There are different types of mushroom. This is a high value product. At first, they used to say that you cannot grow button mushroom in Malawi. I even had students from LUANAR who came. There is one professor or lecturer from Bunda who told them that you cannot grow button mushroom in Malawi. They were surprised to see that you can grow button mushroom. Why? Because you provided conducive environment, issues of crime, issues of technology, issues of temperatures. You have just to have ACs, all those things. You can have those technologies and produce mushroom and make money out of there. The other thing is limited access to market. The professor said that. It's indeed true. If the farmers, we do not know where to take our crops, we cannot diversify. We will say we'll be growing maize because we know that when we grow maize, my neighbor will buy maize. It's a staple food. The market is there, especially why limited access to market due to poor infrastructure, high transportation costs. You're talking of the market demand, information on market demand. We do not know. So even if we introduce new crops, but if we do not know where to get these things, the farmers, we cannot go into diversity. We'll be growing what we know. The other thing is, I think she also mentioned the climate variations and change. So I'll just say these are the main three challenges that we see as farmers when we are growing our crops out there.
I think the issue of financing is one that not just farmers but all entrepreneurs would raise in Malawi. How have you gone around it? Did you get a big loan from some bank to set up? How did you go about it in terms of financing your farm?
So financing, we can say that even as a farmer, we're talking of a farmer, a rural farmer. To get financing, it's not easy because of all those things that comes for you to access financing. I would say there's even a challenge in access to affordable credit. Because even if you go out there, you find that you need to have collateral. A mere farmer who is growing maize 1 acre, not even 1 acre, quarter acre, you would want him to give you collateral, and then he gives you money. And then when they go to the bank, we are told that agriculture is a risk business. We cannot give you money. So I'm just glad that there are some programs which are coming just to answer that. For example, I'll give you an example of some finance institutions are tailor-made. They are making some sort of tailor-made to make sure that the farmers are getting finance. I'll give you an example of Agricom. We're supposed to be in cooperatives.
Did you get your finance from Agricom?
Exactly. Yeah. We put ourselves in cooperative so that we are a group of people. And then one of the things that we were taught is you need to just have matching grant. So that one is better than having a collateral. So with a number of people, you are able to access a lot of money because you are into group. And then I'll give you an example. It's on the same of Agricom. We used to grow our mushroom we started with thatched glass. Then we graduated to a building like this, just putting the ACs. And now we'll be growing a mushroom using greenhouses, which is a plus to us. It will be the first farmers to grow a button mushroom in Malawi using greenhouses. And this is what is happening in countries like China, in countries like developed countries where mushroom is key. It's their main food. So we can see that we're getting there because of that financing.
Thank you, and congratulations. We hope to see many farmers like you going forward. Jeremy, PICSAS has brought in something different to Malawi's agriculture. What agriculture diversification strategies and technologies work for Malawi? Maybe you can give examples of what is working with for PICSAS.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I think actually my response is going to be quite similar to a single farmer's response. There was a lot of things that sounded quite familiar of saying this is what we're interested in doing and being told that's not going to work. We were told can't grow soybeans in winter. We've now multiplied soybean seed every winter for the last 5 seasons. You're never going to have farmers sell groundnuts nut and shell. Now, even beyond what we're purchasing, a lot more of the market has moved towards selling nut and shell. So I think what that kind of represents is the strategy that PICSAS has used and almost used because it was the only option was a vertically integrated strategy from seed production, seed research, all the way up to the factory and exports. And that's because we, even with a crop like groundnuts that is very familiar and used to be a primary export crop as well as always being a food crop in Malawi, when we went to commercialize that crop, we were almost a sole actor. Yes, we're working with partners at DARS, we're working with partners at LUANAR, with international research partners, but we are always having to serve as the pull for that research or that pull for that assistance. pull for that technology. So it's been a lonely road. So I can say vertical integration is one way, one strategy. It's what Pyxis has done for the last several years. But when thinking about commercialization for the groundnut crop in general, agriculture in Malawi and Malawi as a country, I think vertical integration shows a good model. It shows an example of what can be done. But as soon as we want to expand that impact, we're going to need to work together to build that system. What Pyxis quite often says is even to meet the current groundnut crop as it is, if we wanted that to move into the formal markets for export value addition, we would need 20 additional Pyxises. So really building that system, building that network that can provide seed research, provide that equipment, provide that technology, provide that financing is really going to be key. So I think needing to broaden that scope of what's a strategy for diversification and really working within an entire system is the way that we'll need to progress.
How can Malawi attract more Pyxises, both local and foreign, more companies investing into agriculture diversification?
Yeah, so I think, with the work that MwAPATA does, and I think kind of some of the underlying themes of the presentation we saw from our speaker is the environment needs to be conducive. And that's a primary policy environment. I think it was highlighted in the latest World Bank Country Economic Monitor that there appears to be a gap between policy and policy implementation. And a lot of that comes down to not having an understanding of how that system works. And we see it pop up in little examples, the case of the irrigation and the maximum demand for ESCOM. I do believe that's being addressed, but exactly, if you want to irrigate and you're only irrigating some of the time, every month you're paying that maximum load demand charge to ESCOM, and it becomes difficult at all scales. So I think the policy environment needs to be receptive to investment in the agricultural space. It needs to be collaborative in setting that policy. And at the end of the day, that policy and that regulation needs to be there to facilitate economic investment in the agricultural space and not restrict it.
Thank you so much. From the research point of view, Dr. Kananja and Dr. Chilongo, how can policy, especially research, innovation, technology, support in terms of improving the environment so that we have more farmers, both corporate and also individual farmers, investing meaningfully into diversification? So I'll start with Dr. Kananja, and I'll come to Dr. Chilongo.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. I think the aspect of this country seriously thinking into diversification is very critical. From the research perspective, Professor presented, what the department has done in terms of developing and raising improved varieties. That listing was probably just part of it. And if we look at the current release of varieties and technologies, so much has actually been done. What is critical really is now to help smaller farmers appreciate, those technologies. The Center for Agricultural Transformation has cut. We are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that if there is time for farmers to diversify, that time is now. I was looking through what the position of the tobacco sector. 15 countries in Africa actually have their economies depending on tobacco. And when I looked at the top 3 countries, Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe happen to solely depend on tobacco for their economies. And this is why probably with funding from the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World, we have taken a step to ensure that we expose technologies and innovations to smallholder farmers. And we strongly believe that when smallholder farmers see a technology, that's when they will adopt. So it is time that we should join hands, join efforts to ensure that all the technologies, all the interventions, all the aspects that will help smallholder farmers diversify and increase productivity, the smallholder farmer should get that support. Expose the technologies to the farmer, expose the crop management practices, and expose the relevant varieties depending on where the farmers are. And following the keynote presentation, we need to be very careful in terms of what we recommend where to smallholder farmers. Let me stop there. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe Dr. Chilongo, you can add there, but I'm particularly focused on what Jeremy raised, but also what Temwani raised in terms of improving the environment, making it more conducive and receptive. I think that's the way to use it. And what Temwani said, making it viable, but also improving access to finance, access to markets, to the farmers that are willing to invest, put their money in agriculture. How can research support that?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think us as researchers, as I said, as you mentioned when you are introducing me, that I wear two hats, both as a researcher and as an academician. So I'll be speaking with those two hats. I think there is really need to change our policy frameworks. I think there's too much emphasis on two crops, tobacco and maize. And I'm happy that Temwa is our former student, and I'm proud of you that you indeed broke the cycle where most of our graduates, they just want to be employed. But gone are the days. We know our economy is not now absorbing students. We're even exporting students to Israel when we need some here. So Malawi is that country that would want even to export nurses when it doesn't have enough nurses. So that's the other thing. And this too much emphasis on tobacco and maize is everywhere. I think you can see even our policies, the eminent speaker rightly mentioned, I think we don't want to talk about this, that while there are positive benefits of the subsidies that we are putting through, but you can see what they're trying to, the negative side is, of course, they are politicized, they are not efficient. We are now forcing even farmers to grow crops. We are giving them incentives to grow crops that are not even fit to be grown in those areas. I'll give an example. I did my secondary school in Dedza. It's very cold. And before even I specialized in agriculture, but I used to note every time that we were moving around, you see people are still trying to plant maize around Dedza Boma. It doesn't grow. But the thing is, because our policies and too much focused on crops, too much focused on crops. What our former student has mentioned, I think we are, it's expensive. Now, let me talk as an academician. It's expensive to train one student graduate. It's very, very expensive. Even though people are complaining about fees and all those things, but I tell you, government subsidizes a lot. Even if the fees was 2 million per person per annum, it's not enough. So I always question myself, why are we spending on all this money on somebody that we are not fully utilizing? It really pains me when I go in the field and interact with some of my former students. You see, I have my professors here, Professor Chiwota, Professor Chiwaula. When you think that how much problem we give these students when they are studying for their degrees, and then you find them loafing in the streets, you know, it really pains to say, Why was all that trouble? So the other thing that I'm mentioning is that we have to improve our absorption capacity because we have trained a lot of people, but you find them doing something that is irrelevant. Maybe the last point that I want to talk about, because I know others also have to talk about, is as government, I think we are too much dependent on donors. As I said, I'm wearing both hats, so it also pains me as a researcher that you would want us, all these people that have achieved professorship, if you ask them, they will tell you that it was my own effort. Not that you don't have to put your own effort, but most of these projects that we are doing, that's why also later on, even all these, I don't want to mention names, you see that after they are gone, like we have been evaluating a program, I will not mention it, by government. All these things of integration that you're talking about, diversification, they are there. But once the project closes, all these things are closed. The reason is, as a government, I know we are poor, but this excuse, I think, will not help us. When we are relying on foreign funding for national development, the challenge is we are dictated all these good projects. If you ask, like for me, I've been in research for over 20 years. There are times that I cry. I say, what am I doing? Is it real for the country or for the donor?
I can feel your pain.
Okay,
I'll come back to you. Thank you very much. Yeah, but you have mentioned, I think, issues policy. Or obviously, you have talked about the issue of failing to utilize our graduates, and you have talked about the issue about donor over dependence on donors, which brings me to Mr. Soko. You are the director in the Department of Agriculture and Extension. What policy interventions can the government explore to improve agriculture sector's productivity and diversification? And in that, when you're responding, please reflect on the issues that were raised by our eminent speaker, but also our people on the ground, including the researchers.
Thank you very much, moderator. And on a special note, let me recognize the PS who is part of the ODS, and I'm sure because I'm invited as panelist, but I think at some point the PS may handle some of the pertinent issues from the government side. But just to answer your question, Malawi is not short of policies. If you are to be given a chance to read policies which we have developed, which MwAPATA, NPC, and other key stakeholders have facilitated, you see that we have the relevant policies in Malawi. And it's sometimes very shocking, not that I'm defending, but I'm very sure we have been guided for the past 7 years by our own national agriculture policy. And recently we have this in Malawi 2063. Oh, that's already policy direction, whose pillar number 1 is agricultural productivity and commercialization. Already you will see that Malawi is on the right path in terms of policy direction. So in our national agriculture policy, for example, reviewed 2023, validated coincidentally yesterday, that's again very clear. We have 5 priority policy areas, 5 policy areas. Agricultural productivity and production is number 1. That's already a message. We are signaling that here we can't do anything if we don't talk about productivity and production. Number 2, we are talking about food and nutrition security. Very clear. How best can we handle both national and household level food security? We have agricultural agro-processing, commercialization, value addition as priority number 3. And most importantly, we have sustainable land and water and other related natural resources management. Finally, but not least, institutional development covering coordination, including risk management. So, indeed, as a ministry, as a sector, we normally prepare. And I wish we were given such a chance one day just to publicize what we are doing. But I know some people know. Now, critical interventions, no question about it. Agricultural commercialization. is directly linked to agricultural diversification. We have a basket of, in fact, I'm not sure whether we have funded maize-based farmers. I'm not sure. In agricultural commercialization is purely those enterprises whose market is available. And off-taker farmer engagement is priority. You can't produce if you don't have a market. And I'm happy, Madam, here is one of such farmers. And currently, we can't even talk about history. If you go in the villages now, you see 95 tractors and 100 vehicles, trucks, belonging to the farmers. So that's already a critical pathway to provide direction. Mega farm is again a very critical area. I know people don't want to talk about it, but I can confirm that this year, like 2023, 2024, over 200 farmers have obtained loan to be engaged in mega farm. And the loan, for example, by the way, it's loan. Mike is coordinating. It's not that Ministry of Agriculture is giving out money. Mike, as a company, is giving out loans to mega farmers. And I'm sure 20 billion is being spent on the same. NIF has also transformed. The famous NIF, we have given them 15 billion and over 15,000 farmers, not just small farmers, they have already been engaged to handle pertinent agricultural diversification aspects in agribusiness. But most importantly, in the policy, as policy intervention, we are not hinging, or we are not talking about small holding as a paramount, as an important feature in the document. What is featuring there is the farmer. So we are saying, let's commercialize the farming mentality. Whether you have 10 hectares, you have 15 hectares, you have even 2 hectares. You know, some farmers are making even money within a small area, but they commercialize their thinking. And again, they are using irrigation. They are not just focusing on maize. By the end of the day, we are indeed on the right path. So in summary, moderator, indeed, we have a number of interventions which are really reflecting on the policy. And I'm sure when we are launching this policy, a build on of 2016 policy, and this is called the National Agriculture Policy 2023, people now understand the direction we are taking. But we are indeed undertaking a policy reform agenda in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I saw the PS taking a lot of notes, so I'm sure it's going to add on to what you have said. But I think you have mentioned the key things you have said. We're not short of policies, but I think we are just not good on implementation. You have also mentioned a few funding agencies that have been rejuvenated and having financing farmers, and I think Temwani testified about AGCOM getting financing. So in closing, and I'll give 1 minute each, I'll start with you, Dr. Chilongo. What would be your strongest recommendation in terms of us as a country getting things done in terms of agriculture? We have the policies, we have got a few interventions coming in. What's your strongest recommendation going forward so that we should do a bit? He said we should commercialize our thinking, but we should also be commercializing our actions. What's your strongest recommendation going forward?
I think we have talked enough of these talk shows. We need to start implementing. I will note that we haven't started, because I agree with Mr. Soko that Malawi, actually other countries come and get the policies from us and use them. We are not short of policies and other developmental frameworks, but it's high time that we started action. And this action, it's continuing what I said. It's like, let's try to have our own resources. The donor resources should just complement, because we are told that over 30% of our budget.
Where will those resources come from?
That's what I'm talking about. I was just going there to say that I think there have been studies that have shown that over 30% of our resources go down the drain. And you find our budget, we are supported by about, let's say, 40%. What it means, under normal circumstances, you only get support for 10%. We should have our own funds. These donors, when they come, I still insist, they come with their own conditions, sometimes which are not good for us. So as a country, there's no country that has developed relying on donors. Can you just give me one more minute? Let me give you, as a development economist, we are told that we always talk about the Marshall Plan, the one that happened in US helping the European countries after the Second World War. It just took short time to develop. And as development economists, we are told that if each of the developed countries allocate at least 1%, not more, 1% to the least developed countries, most of us will be out of this underdevelopment. But they will never give us that. They always give us, like, all these countries, they give like 0.3%. It's only the Nordic countries that give at least 1%, but they're very small economies. So the point I'm trying to make is, I think, as long as we depend on donors, these talk shows will continue with nothing to show for it.
Thank you very much. We must learn to use our resources. I asked him where the resources come from. He said, we have the resources, but I think they are not being put to good use. So that's his recommendation. Jeremy, your strongest one recommendation, 1 minute.
So I think it ties very well back to the conversation, and it's policy focused on research. There are draft bills, there are final bills with the language that restricts who can do research and development, that private sector companies can't do research and development. And I think going on against what was said earlier is you're training an agricultural scientist at a university. They've graduated, you've put that effort in, and if they can't go on their own or to a company and practice what they learn as a research scientist, why have we trained them? So I think understanding, the restriction on who can do research is a very simple way or simple example of looking at policies that we're doing and spending the time to understand what impact they're actually going to have once they're enacted. And again, I think there's a lot of examples out there when you would look, if you take a close look at some of the policies and spend some time to understand what impact they would have, who are they benefiting, who are they restricting, I think that would be very important from the policy side.
Thank you. The research and development and the involvement of the private sector, more involvement of the private sector in research and development is the strongest recommendation from Jeremy. Dr. Kananji, what is your strongest recommendation that we should take from you going on?
Thank you very much. If we are looking at increased agricultural productivity, then we need to ensure that the technologies that have been developed reach out to the farmer. We cannot talk about diversification if we don't carefully consider issues of markets. Therefore, markets will be key. Adoption of technologies by smaller farmers and the viable markets will actually drive diversification in this country. Thank you.
Technologies developed must get to the farmer, and you must also give a special look at the markets. That's the strongest recommendation from Dr. Kananji. Temwani, you're on the ground. What is your strongest recommendation? And also, as you're recommending, maybe I know you'll be looking at the government, but what can you recommend from people, young women like you who are in government, they studied agriculture in Bunda, but they are afraid of getting their hands dirty in the garden?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think a lot has been said on the recommendation. Just to give you an example of myself, when I was resigning, I had like maybe out of 100 people, 98 were saying, "You've gone mad. What are you going to do there at the farms?" By looking at me, one would say, "Is this a farmer?" But when we're there, we are farmers. Because working in government, I would have stayed there, but I noticed that there's a big gap between the policy, like we've said, policy. There's so many, we are writing so many books, but as a farmer, they're not getting, it's not trickling down to the farmer. So we keep on writing. There are a lot of professors who are doing so many things. It's not like I'm not saying that the professors are not doing fine, but let's do something that can help a farmer. It's high time. We've talked a lot. We're talking of technologies. These technologies are being produced by, let's say, someone with PhD or masters, but you expect a standard 2 farmer to use that technology. Is that possible? Even if they buy those equipment, Professor showed us an example of a processing machine. What does that mean? It means even the trainings, everything. The people, they are just given these things, but they don't know how to use them. So Malawi has been like that. Ever since I was born, we've been seeing things. Up to now, we're still talking about, but now it's time to do the things right. Let's engage the farmer. Let's train them. I would also want to comment on the donor money. For me, I would say donor money, it's not bad when it's used, bueno. Why am I saying this? I'll give you an example of Kat. Kat is here, is also my partner. Kat came to our farm, we collaborated with Kat. They help us to organize the farmers. The farmers now, they're in groups. For us to access funding with AGCOM, the CAT had already made a foundation to make sure that we access financing from AGCOM. But without the CAT, we would have just been working as individuals. But now we're working in groups. We can see that even access to finance, we're able to get access to finance. Even the production has increased. At first, it was we're producing little, but now it's big. So the donor money, if you used it properly, it's good money, especially a country like Malawi. We want to grow. We can use it and then we grow from there. So I wouldn't say that donor money it's bad, but if it can be used properly. Yeah, so I think it's high time we work with farmers. Let's work with them. No time to ask them, why is it that they're producing? Let's find solutions, and they are there. We know them. We've written so many books. Let's take them to the ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It says, let's with the farmers, let's simplify the technologies. Let's take them to the farmers. Let's not expect them to come on their own and get them, but we must take to them, the farmers. And certainly, Temwani, you're not looking like a farmer. And that should be a motivation to the other young women, because you're saying that it's worth taking the risk. And once you take the risk, if you calculate the risk, you do your homework properly, then you start attracting support, including finance. First of all, is for you to take the risk and get your hands dirty. So thank you very much, Temwani. Let's clap hands for our panelists. I'm not releasing you because I'm opening the floor to the audience. I will take 3 questions from the audience here, but also 3 online. Then the panelists and maybe our eminent speaker could help in responding. So 3, you raise your hand, introduce yourself, then let me see who is. So it's 1, 2, I only have 2, so that makes my life easier. So we'll start with you, sir, then you introduce yourself, then you raise your, let's get the mic to the gentleman. If it's a question, you can maybe specifically mention the one you're directing it to.
Okay. My name is Mpaula Isi. I work with Small Farm Cities Africa. My question is going to Dr. Chilongo. You talked about capacity building among the youth, to say government is, not just government, but government and the private sector are investing a lot in the youth, and then we're just wasting away because we're not producing what we're intended to produce. My question would be, what can the youth do to help in transforming the policies in the agricultural sector? Because I believe the youth are a capital here in Malawi. They present capital here in Malawi. So what can the youth do to help in transforming the policies in agriculture? Not just hearing from our leaders and our elders that we need to do this to the youth, but what can the youth do to engage and help transform the policies? Thank you.
Thank you. There's a hand also next to Paul. Mese, how are the online audience sending questions to us?
Thank you so much. My name is Triana Rwanda from AICC. For me, it's not really going to be a question, but I think it will still come back to the question at the end of the day. I want to appreciate the keynote speaker for the well-articulated and evidence-based presentation, but also our panelists. For me, what I wanted to talk about is the issue of access to information, which was actually one of the key issues that was highlighted. So my question is, the farmers, I'll specifically speak in terms of the smallholder farmers. The smallholder farmers' access to information comes from us, the people that are in this room. And I think the professor also mentioned and said that, you know, it is the professors, it is the well-learned, it is everyone else that goes to the community and tell them exactly what they should do in terms of agronomic practices. Similarly, in terms of access to markets, it is us who go back to tell them. Access to finance, it is also us who go back to tell them. And for some time, I think the farmers are the most resilient in terms of accepting and trying out anything that we are actually asking them to do. So my question is, we as a team here, how do we trickle the information that we are getting from here into the communities? How many of us are able to say that, okay, we have issues to do with the type of seed that we are using in a specific value chain? As a team that is here, how do we trickle that information? Are we not the one that are also confusing the farmers? Because the information that the farmers are actually getting is coming from us. So how do we ensure that the information that we are taking it back to the farmers is now different, and that the farmers are able to resonate with each one of us in this room to say that, yes, there is now Agicom, there is now trade, there is now this that is able to provide resources for me. How do we then help them to access those kind of resources? How do we ensure that we tell them that Pixas has a market for groundnuts? So for me, I'm still looking at, it still comes back to us, because it is us who has been providing this kind of information to the farmers on the ground. So how do we go and reverse? Because most of the issues that are happening at community level are because of the extension services, extension that we have brought to the communities. So how do we reverse that? Where do we put ourselves? And maybe on another note, we are here. How do we trickle? Maybe I want to commend MwAPATA. They have been conducting all these series. But the question is now, at what point do we directly interface with the farmers? So we have the whole room filled with all the farmers, so that they also understand what are the policy issues, what are the financial issues, how do we get support, and so on. So maybe we also need to start looking at how do we ensure that the next time we have all the farmers gathered in Chikwawa and we disseminate all this kind of information the same way we are here, so that each and every one of them can also hear from the horse's mouth and start to use that information accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll start with the first question. What can the young people, the youth, do to support the transformation? In this case, the diversification. Maybe, Tema, you can attempt on that one. You started young and you're still young.
I think I would start by commenting that the way I've seen the youth in Malawi, I always take the youth as, especially these days, when I say this statement, the youth always gets angry with me. I see that the youth are lazy somehow. Lazy in the sense that reading, it's not in them. You're talking of policies. We're saying that there are a lot of books, a lot of policies. Where to get the information, you can go to Ministry of Agriculture. They know where to go. But for them to have that mentality to say, I want to get this, what does it mean? It's not in them. They want easy money. They want issues like farming, they don't want. They think like maybe farming is dirty, I cannot do this. So with that mentality with the youth, there are some who are working hard, but because of the same issues that they're just starting, they cannot access financing, issues of collateral, they cannot access financing even from the bank. But most of them, I can see that at least these days we are coming up, but we are lazy somehow. You find that you go to the bank, they tell you that you need to have business plan, for instance. You have to make sure that the business plan is there because it's the requirement of the bank. You go back, the bank that has told you that no, after business plan you need to have this. They stop, they say, I cannot do this. So there are those things that you need to be, at least you need to take time. Even for myself, for me to do this, it's not like you started like yesterday. You've gone through all these stages and then now you'll see that, oh, so it's easier to get financing from the donors, or it's easier to get financing from the bank because your books, documentation from the bank, everything is clean because you've learned. So I think the issue of also information, maybe it's also not there. Others, for example, myself, I'm happy because I've gone through, for instance, the ministries I've worked, so at least I know what it means. But look at the youth out there that do not have that such type of information that is AGICOM. The youth out there that is working hard, but they do not have information. So maybe to answer that, the issues of communication again, is maybe if we can, like for example, this meeting, she said it, what the information, how is it going to go there? There's issues of digital platforms. You find that when you go there, let's say, I'll give you an example because of the experience with the youth and the farmers out there, the way we are working. You go there with the meetings like this, you take drinks, you eat, you give them food, and then they go to their homes. You think they'll use what they have done? They were going there because they know that they are going to be given something. They are going to eat, they are going to take, but it needs to be with them every day. They need to have, for example, mobile technology, the phones, these small phones whereby they can be told that weather patterns are like this. They'll be remembering after having those mobile technologies where to get directing them. Let's say maybe they have their crops direct them to the buyers, not like the middleman. They know where to get their crops. All those things they need to have. Maybe just an example of mobile digital. Yeah. So unlike having in the meetings, they know that when we go there, we chat and then they go back. They go back to where they're doing, but it has to be practical. And these people from their experience, the fact that you and me have gone to school, it's a plus. But for them, you have to repeat. You have to repeat even 10 times, 20 times because of the issues of understanding. The gap is there. We're not the same. So I think maybe those are some of the things that can be done.
Thank you, Juliana. Access to information to the farmers in terms of markets, in terms of finance, is with us. How do we trickle that information to the farmers? How do we get them farming? Because we are just talking here, he says that when do we go to Chikwawa and the likes to give this information to the farmers so that they start using this information? Maybe from Dr. Kananji, you have done a lot of research. How do you get information to the farmers, the one that we are not using?
Right. Thank you very much. The Center for Agricultural Transformation has got a very good platform where we actually expose farmers to emerging, proven, and the upcoming technologies. Farmers do come to our smart farms. We have 3 smart farms, one at NRC, one at Bunda, and then the other one at the Mapoka Research Station. We deliberately organize field tours, demo tours for the farmers. When the crop is at vegetative stage, we actually invite farmers to come and appreciate. And when the crops have matured, then farmers are also brought in to actually appreciate what they saw at the vegetative stage. So we strongly think that the smart farms as platforms where we can actually interface with farmers, let farmers see, let farmers appreciate, let farmers learn, and begin to apply what they have seen, what they have learned in their own communities. The other component that we also focus on as CAT is that we know there are able partners out there. These partners directly work with the farmers. So we capacitate these partners financially and technically so that they're able, within their setup, engage with the farmers, let farmers help farmers at their remote areas where they're actually operating as farmers. So we have seen that these platforms have actually yielded good results. Uptake of technologies have begun to rise, and farmers are able actually to tell you, to say, these are our production challenges. And therefore, we are able to say, okay, if this is your production challenge, we know which partner we need to engage so that this partner can actually work. Currently, we have involved LUANAR to conduct what we call research on demand. The research on demand concept is a deliberate attempt to make sure that as we work with partners, as we work with farmers, in an event that they have their production challenges, they immediately get solutions to them. We will not wait for the Department of Agricultural Research, whose mandate, of course, we know is there to generate technologies, but we know that we can support LUANAR, we can support any other entity to actually investigate and provide solutions to challenges that smaller farmers face. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is one question from online, Precious Mchumbuza. He's a student from the Beijing Forest University, but he's a Malawi. And he says, what is the policy saying about building on arable agricultural land? Because in other countries, agricultural land cannot be used for building purposes and vice versa. What is our land policy saying about this? Mr. Soko, can you take that?
I don't think I will handle that from the policy perspective. But I think just to attempt, when we say arable, already you know it's available for crop production, livestock production, and other related interventions. So I don't know what is so interesting to know that we should consider building it on arable land.
It's what the eminent speaker raised in his presentation when he said that most arable land in Lilongwe is being used for construction.
Okay. The urbanization. I think it's to do with the urbanization where people selling out land for plots.
Yes.
I think it's just unfortunate. I wish people would really consider arable land for agricultural production and other interventions. So maybe the professor will handle it, but otherwise, as agriculture, we are very worried that some land is suitable for production is now being used for residence. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
But I wish I had to respond to one of the pertinent issues as to how do we land in the villages. If you have
you can do that as a comment.
Yeah, I think we have noted what we have done in the ministry. We have developed a system. We have no choice but to have a system approach. Decentralized agriculture extension services system. Right away from the village, we have a structure called Village Agriculture Committee. And we have said the leadership of this structure should comprise the youth. Secondly, even at the group level, tier level, district level, and the rest. Secondly, in the AGCOM 2, the $265 million project, the youth, it's not an option that youth should participate, it's mandatory. It happened in the first AGCOM from 2018 to 2023-24, the youth were not active. So what we did was to do district-based conferences. So we engaged with the youth officer, trade officer, agribusiness officer, and went in their locality. The good thing with the youth, they have youth networks. So we had a conference for each and every district, and then the youth were forced to apply for AGCOM. As I talk now, the current AGCOM 1, which is phasing, and we are transitioning into AGCOM 2, out of the 74,000 beneficiaries, these are direct beneficiaries, 28,000 are youth. A practical example is ACADES. Those who are not familiar with ACADES, they have a very good structure. They benefit from AGCOM because we deliberately made sure that the youth participate in this. So indeed, we have now mechanism that if you have a critical message today, within a week or two, the structures should be used to make sure that the information is accessible. Secondly, thirdly, we have engaged mobile, these community radios. We have noted that community radios are more effective to deliver. So we have paid, for example, about 7 community radios in Malawi. When you have pertinent information, be it AGCOM, be it AIP, be it any important information, we are taking this message to the community radio. As a result, I think information is now flowing. Most importantly, the use of ICT, like others have said. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And once again, let's give a big round of applause to our panelists. You have been a very informative panel. Oh, Dr. Chilongo has one burning issue. I hope that's the last one. Okay.
Yeah, I've said I want to say this because I know we have people of the media. I don't want tomorrow to see a screaming headline. Dr. Chilongo says, "Let's do away with donors." Because I also heard from Kemwa. Okay, what I meant was this. Actually, a country like Malawi will always benefit from donors. And in actually long term, we can't say that we'll do away with donors. But the reason why I gave that figure that maybe I didn't even connect why I mentioned the Marshall Plan. For the countries of Europe after Second World War, US helped them with the Marshall Plan and they were back on their feet in no time. It was because they pumped sufficient funds to those countries. And I gave you an example that as a development economist, there was a calculation that if each developed country allocate at least to the LDCs, because we are part of least developed countries, then most of them would be out of there. Of course, there are a lot of other things like we have to reduce corruption and so on. So what I said that we need ourselves as a country to have our own resources, enough resources, to allocate resources to our own development. The donors come in to supplement. I very much appreciate what the donors are doing, what CAT is doing, what AGCOM is doing. But what I'm saying is, when those ones go, so what? Even when CAT goes, so what? That's the biggest question that we should ask. They will come, they will never be there forever. That's why the donors should be there. But for us as a country, we should be serious enough to invest our own development, because it's only when we have our own resources that we can really do development according to our mandates, not being dictated by somebody else. So let me mention that we still need donors, but as a country, we need to contribute more than what we are doing at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. That's clear, Dr. Chilongo. Once again, let's clap hands for our panelists, and you may go and resume your seats as we go towards the closing part of our program. At this juncture, I would like to invite to the podium Dr. Thomas Muntali, the Director General of the National Planning Commission, to give the key takeaways from both what our eminent speaker raised, but also what our panelists and the audience have raised. Dr. Muntali.
I would want to be very quick. I think you all agree that it's not easy to summarize what Prof has presented and the very well laid out issues from the eminent panelists that were here. Suffice to mention that the partners led by MwAPATA put together a report that will summarize, the issues that have come out from here. So be on the lookout. I'm sure that should be coming out very soon. You would want to sincerely recognize the leaders of the 3 partners that are with us in here, and the leaders from government, including the PS who is with us here. And I know there are other very eminent colleagues here. In the interest of time, I will not mention each one of you in person, but recognize that you are one of them that has been recognized in a special way. I will just go straight to a few of the things that came out. And I think the Prof highlighted very well the issues around the topic of enhancing agricultural growth and diversification. I'm sure each one of us has picked a thing or two, but I would want to focus, just to highlight areas where he's talked about the importance of diversification. He's already highlighted the challenges, he's highlighted the policy issues that will come out later on. But in his recommendation, I think a few key issues came out. The importance of optimizing the agroecological climatic zones. And linked to that is that he's talking about diversification in around 4 key areas: food systems diversification, land and water diversification, domestic to export markets diversification, and diet diversification. And I'm sure that there are in each one of them, as you might have heard, a number of challenges as well as policy issues that he's suggested that we need to take on board moving forward. But then I would want to also pull off from what came from the panelists. As I said, if I was going to say all these things, I'll spend a lot of time, but the colleagues in MwAPATA and the partners will do a great job. I will want to go straight to the recommendations that the panelists came out with. I think one of them, and I like that because it resonates to some of us quite a lot, is that let's talk less and implement more, because we have a lot of policies around, but I think the implementation, while happening, I think is not to the level that we should be celebrating about. There's an issue of avoiding donor dependence, but that donors should be used as catalysts. And I think that's what the point that Dr. Chilongo and Temwani highlighted very well. Understanding the policy and research interfaces. I think asking ourselves, policy for what? Research for what? And then making sure that researchers and private sector players work closely in ensuring that whatever research and technologies are being developed are being put to good use. And then key is that the technologies that are being developed should reach the farmers. We should find a mechanism of adoption of the technologies, especially by the smallholder farmers, whether individually or in cooperatives. And the importance of having viable markets. I think that, puts together the importance of looking at the diversification across the whole value chain system. And the relevance of the technologies. We have had technologies from what we got that sometimes don't talk to the needs of the farmers. And so we need to make sure that they talk to the needs if they are to be adopted. And the importance of, I think, not just the importance, but the key aspect of hope that is coming out. We heard from government representative here, represented by Pearson, that there is a lot of efforts around even decentralizing the systems in terms of information flows. And I think that's quite encouraging. At the same time, we've also heard about how there are efforts to make sure that the National Agricultural Policy as it stands now, the 2023, really talks to the key issues of diversification, but more importantly, the fruits are already showing off, where we are seeing mega farming, for example, 200 plus farmers that are already getting loans through Mike, beside the cooperatives that NIF is supporting. And I think that's quite encouraging. I think in conclusion, I should also highlight from my own perspective, now sitting from the Commission. And I think, as I said, what Disney once said that I think it's important, if you want to get started, to do less talking and do more, and do the doing more. So I hope that in the engagements that we'll be having moving forward, one of the key questions that MwAPATA and LUANAR and us as partners would want to be seeking from the eminent speakers is what is it that will make those that are supposed to act. Because if we keep on talking, I believe that this room knows very well why we need to diversify. I know this room knows how to diversify. So the importance of diversification and how to do it is well documented and known. But why are we not diversifying? So I think putting together solutions around, if it means forcing those that have to do the diversification to do so, then we need to do that. Because look, the challenges are here for all of us to see. For months on end, we are hovering over import cover that only lasts a month or less, showing the importance of diversification. Our debt levels are so huge that our revenue generation requires diversification. Almost everything is pointing to the importance of diversifying this economy. But why are we not diversifying? And I think two of the reasons could be we're not holding each other accountable more. And second, we have a lot of vested interests. And I think unless we begin to address these issues squarely, we'll keep on coming here, Dr. Chilonga, as you've rightly pointed out, to talk shows. And I think each one of us should get tired of talk shows. So next time, and I'm happy, like Prof was pointing out, he was giving a lot of examples of what communities are doing to diversify. I think we should be talking about what are we doing and do more. But I'm having hope. Because when you look at the story of the mega farming now, just like our colleague Pearson talked about, 200 farmers plus that have gotten loans to diversify and to move into all that, it's quite encouraging. When you go and see AIT, Dr. Nafuman team there, and CAT, this morning, we are seeing a site at Natural Resources College. They've got a campus. CAT is constructing a site where they'll be utilizing that close to their smart farm to train to support smallholder farmers, especially on how they can take note of technologies and how they can adopt those technologies, including them bringing problems where they can find solutions from. I think that's encouraging. We can be getting encouraged by the irrigation systems that are moving up now, moving forward. So those stories need to be told more. So I just wanted to highlight that I think it's a high time that we build strong partnerships, alliances, so that we can propel the diversification agenda a lot more. Next time we're coming to have an eminent speaker series, we want to have more about what has happened around whatever topic we're talking about, because we do not, colleagues, have the luxury of time. Thanks so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muntari. I think a good summary, but also a quite interesting take from his own point of view as the Director General of the National Planning Commission. Let's give him another round of applause. At this juncture, I would like to invite to the podium our PS for irrigation, Engineer Jeffrey Mamba, to come and close the session this afternoon, but also maybe to respond to one or two issues that have been raised by our panelists, our audience, but also maybe the eminent speaker, Engineer Mamba.
First of all, I think I should apologize that my voice is not the voice that I normally have. Apologies. Our eminent speaker for the day, Professor Sosten Njiotta, the Director General for NPC, Dr. Thomas, I like the middle name, Chatalala Muntari, Then we have our executive director for the MwAPATA, William Chadza. We have the director from our MSG, the Malawi School of Government. And indeed, I want to recognize the director extension. Then we have the director from Ministry of Finance. And indeed, all eminent people that have been here listening to the professor and also the panel discussion that has happened here. Now, my job as the director of ceremony, I said, is just to make a statement in terms of closing this exposition that has been done by the professor on enhancing agricultural growth and diversification. Now, when we have been speaking around here, and it's good that a few points have been raised. The points to say, when we talk about a farmer, how much is the farmer getting out of the research that we are doing? In fact, I can inform you that the University of North Carolina wants to do just that, to see how much do we convey from the generation point of research products to where we have the farm. There seem to be lots of I'm a water and irrigation person, so there seem to be lots of conveyance losses. We are losing quite a lot between research and what the farmer is actually doing. Again, you forgive me for revealing that I come from a village where within the Chewa heritage, it's where Gulewankuru started from. And we owe royalties for that. Now, this village, long time ago, when we used to see Gulewankuru, the Gulewankuru was in data things, more or less like data in the sense of the human understanding. But the Gulewankuru of these days, I think there's been some transformation. There's been some transformation. And that Gulewankuru represented our ancestors the way they were at that time. And it's they've just died richer, a little bit richer, probably, than those that died a long time before. So even the regalia has been changing over time. And I believe you know that there's Gulewankuru in West Africa, there's Gulewankuru in China, there's Gulewankuru in Australia. But they differ in regalia depending on how their ancestors used to dress. Now, when we are here and we talk of a farmer, normally we are portraying an image that a farmer is somewhere seated there, somewhere. And this is why the statement to say, can we bring the farmers together in Ichkwawa? Who are the farmers? What image do we have of a farmer ourselves? And if I were to go around here to ask a professor, how much land did you do yourself? I go over there, how much land are you doing? And of course, we are encouraged these days that quite a number, they are doing some kind of farming. And we are talking of farmers that are becoming more and more literate. Good Tema that she is one of the farmers. And if you can present her to say, this is one of our farmers, I believe most Malawians will say, no, this one is not a farmer. Because of the image, the perception that we have of a farmer in Malawi. But things are changing. And we in the midst of agriculture would like to see that our farmers, in terms of their outlook, it's changing. It should be changing. Now, reflecting on the presentation which was done by Professor, I think most of us know Brighton Saka. When he was the chief secretary, he used to say, these days, when you are traveling between Lilongwe and Blantyre, you hardly find a place where you can stop and do irrigation, if you know what I mean. And nobody says, how are you? Because the bushes are all gone. The bushes are all gone. And every place, we have now started cultivation. in each and every place, every area. If you go to your village, places where you reserved for some bush, it's all gone. It's all under farming, under cultivation. So the question which came from our colleague who is in Beijing is very pertinent to say, do we have any regulations or regarding arable land and farming? Let me review this, that in this country, just like the professor said, we have what is called, Malawi is a planning area. But how many physical plans do we have in this country? Those which can enable us to regulate. You can't do this here, do it there. You can't do this here, do it there. How many in our district councils do we have? Very, very few. I just know of the recent one, I think in Chikwawa. The others, I think they are obsolete. So the way we are moving in terms of our development, it has to be a bit holistic. The issue of having a project, having development partners, it was a good spectacle that somehow the way the game was being played, the student and his teacher, it could be misunderstood. But finally, I think there was a kind of reconciliation in terms of the opinion of the student and the opinion of the lecturer. But there's been some reconciliation in terms of the way they have presented themselves. But what I wanted to say is this, that when you have a project, things go on very well. And we in the extension, Wanasoko, you know, we enjoy farmers playing some music, and we enjoy. But after the project, what happens? Are these things sustainable? Are they being sustained? Do we have resilience coming out of that? So it's glad that I came. I'm very, very happy. I'm very pleased that I've gotten enriched with the knowledge that has been shared here. I wanted to give some few updates though from the ministry. Number one is to do with especially what the president is saying, the ATM, agriculture, tourism, mining. And the Malawi 2063 speaks about agriculture as number one. Okay, so the government is already focusing on agriculture, and it's up to us to assist. I'm looking for a day, Bwana Jingoma, when in the ministry, each one of us could be cultivating no less than 5 hectares. We are literate, we have gone to schools. I don't know how much production we can have in that particular year, but most of us, we talk, we come here, we talk. That's it. So the mega farms is a way to go, and irrigation is being intensified. We are no longer talking about the 0.1 of a hectare, 0.2 of a hectare. We are talking of 690, 900 hectares. We are talking of 43,000 for the Shire Valley. That's the way we want to go. Not the mbofyo type of things that we used to do. Sorry to borrow the words of the late Good Okondwe. On agriculture tariffs, I'm pleased to inform this gathering that the Presidential Delivery Unit, together with the Minister of Energy, the Minister of Agriculture, GENCO and ESCO, and the MERA, we had lots of discussion, protracted discussions, but we reached a point where we said agricultural tariffs, especially those provided to the smallholder farmers, they have to be affordable. And beginning 1st of November last year, this has been adopted and this has been rolled out. But for the commercial farmer, and we have actually described who is a commercial farmer there, that one, those rates are not applicable to them. So the other thing that I wanted to speak about is on operation and maintenance or management of irrigation schemes. I wish to report that we will soon have a new policy. 2 days ago, our cabinet committee on economy, they approved this, so it will be taken to full cabinet very soon. So some of the issues that you have mentioned, that there's underutilization and so on and so forth regarding irrigation schemes, we believe there will be things of the past. Because we also want to change even the operation mode that we do in terms of irrigation schemes. And we also want even to penalize those that feel that if they can embezzle funds coming from irrigation schemes, they'll go scot-free as if it's church activities. That will be a thing of the past, because the bill is coming very soon, and the Minister of Justice is already giving the final comments on that. Moving on, those who are on social media, I think you may have seen yesterday that the minister responsible for natural resources was in Nkatabe, Linga Dam. Linga Dam was constructed mainly for irrigation, but it can also be multi-purpose or multi-use. So the Minister of Energy has put some fish there, 130,000 of fingerings there. That's the way to go, integrated kind of farming. That's the way to go. But how many dams do we have in this country? So there's a lot that we can do. I think in Zimbabwe, they have announced that we will have 14 days of dry spell, and I think it is going also to apply to us. The minister there has said, let's use this window to do other agricultural activities. Not start complaining. Let's use this window that God has provided as a dry spell to do other things. And I hope our meteorologists are correct that we'll just have 14 days. The last one which I want to speak about is when you look at the maize production in this country, when we say our country is, in terms of maize, is food secure, we're actually talking about maybe 4 million metric tons of maize. 4 million. If we do 4 million, we are happy. But you know, are we not happy if we do 4 million? But that 4 million, how much land do we need to produce 4 million tons in a year? How much land? But we are cultivating from Sanje to Chitipa, every place. As I've said, there's no bush, so every place we are planting some maize, some crop. But if we had a productivity of 5 tons per hectare, because now we talk about 1 ton, 2 tons, 1 ton, 2 tons. If we had a productivity of 5 tons per hectare, the 4,000 metric tons divided by 5 tons, you get probably 800,000. Okay? And if you count that we have a rainy season, then we have 2 cycles of irrigation, 3 cycles of production. How much land do we need to produce our maize? But here we are cultivating everywhere, even fragile areas, making our professor here lament. So colleagues, like I've said, I found this exposition very illuminating, and I'm very glad. And I'll report the same to my Secretary for Agriculture, who would have loved also to be here. So, Director General, our eminent speaker, and also Bwana William Chaza, I want to thank you so much. And by these remarks, I want to declare that this exposition is officially closed. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, BS. Let's give him another round of applause. Before I invite Mary to pray for us, let me announce that there's a cocktail at the back. So when let's use that for interaction, more on what has been discussed here. And the like. So we're all invited to the cocktail and some snacks. So Mary, could you please close with a prayer? Thank you very much.
Tiseke maso timumphere Ambuye Mulungu, tikuyamikani Yehova chifukwa chokhala nafe, tikuyamikani Yehova chifukwa munalola Yehova kuti tikhale pamodzi ndi kukambirana zinthu zopititsa dziko lathu patsogolo. Yehova, as we are going back, tikakupemphani kuti chilichonse chimene takambirana Yehova help us Father kuti tikachikwanirise kuti chikapindulira Malawi amene they are there kunja kwa Yehova kufuna kulifunira dziko lawo labwino komanso kufuna zinthu zitasintha. Tithandizeni Yehova chifukwa everything that we have discussed here popanda inu Yehova sizingatheke. So God help us, give us wisdom, and also ambuye mulungu tipaseni luntha ndi more new ideas Yehova kuti tikathe kupitisa dziko lathu patsogolo. Mwa Yesu Khristu tapemphera. Amen.